Welcome to Trashmagination, a podcast about reimagining trash. I'm Carla Brown. Today we'll talk about creative reuse of umbrellas. Millions of umbrellas are purchased every year and millions end up in landfill. And yet, there are so many fun ways to creatively reuse umbrellas, especially the fabric. In each episode of Trashmagination, I like to share very practical project ideas, and I also like to tell you about artists who are doing some really mind-blowing creative reuse. And usually I start with the more practical ideas, but today I'm going to start with the artists so we can open up our minds just like we're opening up an umbrella to the possibilities. Let's start with Jean Shin, who I talked about in my episodes about denim and also my episode about prescription packaging. So she made 2 installations with the fabric from discarded umbrellas. In 2001, she sewed colorful circular umbrella fabric together like a huge quilt, and she also made a sculpture from the metal umbrella skeleton parts nearby. In 2003, she made a piece from mostly black umbrellas and which hung from trees like a big sunshade. Jean notes that her first umbrella piece was a great way to start thinking about working outside. These pieces were kinetic sculptures, meaning that they would move due to the wind. The wind would make her sculpture feel alive. She loved seeing the shadows that these umbrella pieces would make when the sun shone through them. It made her more aware of happy accidents or things that an artist cannot control about their piece when they're making it in their studio. She also learned about how people interact with sculptures. For example, she saw many people enjoying her sculptures, sitting under them, having some shade in the park. The next artist who works with umbrellas is Sakir Gökcebag, who I mentioned in my episodes on cardboard tubes and also my episode about shoes. Sakir has made so many sculptures with umbrellas, especially the classic black pointy umbrellas. His sculptures usually rely on taking a regular object that you would have at home and taking the shape of that object and repeating it within a sculpture. In an installation from 2020, he took about 30 umbrellas and he attached white string inside the umbrellas from one point to the other, so it made something like a white web inside each umbrella. He then laid them down with the inside of the umbrellas facing up. The umbrellas already have so many interesting lines, and with the addition of the white string, it looked like a mass of lines and shapes. In an installation in 2014, which was called Brella there were many umbrella-based sculptures. In one called Parabol, he removed the black fabric from about maybe 32 umbrellas, and then he laid them on a wall so that all the handles were in the center, forming a big circle. And then another sculpture, there was a mass of umbrellas that looked like they had been maybe chewed up by a dog with shreds of fabric and bits of metal skeleton, and they were all arranged on a white wall. And then there was another sculpture where he took just the curved handles from many umbrellas and he paired them side by side so they looked kind of like waves or little black mustaches, and he connected them across the wall. And that's just the start. There were many other really surprising and wonderful uses of umbrellas in Sakir's work. Helena Loermans is a weaver in Portugal, and her current big passion is studying the canvases of great master painters from the 16th and 17th centuries. So she has figured out what patterns were used in those canvases by using x-rays and then computer-aided looms to replicate these historic canvases. And she's exploring how much did the pattern on the canvas influence these great works of art. In addition to that painstaking research, she has also done some really cool work with patio umbrellas, where she weaves them with colorful strips. So this project, she says, started as a joke because, of course, the rain would come through when you were weaving these umbrella from strips. But then she found that people actually really loved them because they were so colorful. When you see them, they're so beautiful. And actually, they work great as a sunshade. So she gets the fabric to weave into these umbrellas from factories. These are offcuts. These are industrial waste. And it makes me want to rescue the next patio umbrella skeleton that I see in the trash. So one thing I love about Helena's story is that she actually went back to school at age 45 in order to pursue her passion for art and design. And that is a great story. The last umbrella-themed art installation that I'll talk about today is called the Harvest Dome, and it was designed by architects Amanda Schachter and Alexander Levi. So they built a dome. It was actually 24 feet in diameter, and they built the structure of that using 450 umbrellas. Well, specifically, they used the metal skeleton from these discarded umbrellas, and they were attached in a way it sort of looked like a geodesic dome, if you're familiar with that kind of shape. And then they picked up this dome, and on the bottom of it, they put a ring made from 128 plastic bottles, like the 2-liter soda bottles. And then they lifted this whole dome up and they put it on the water. And it would float all around the waterways around New York City. So those were all different art installations, and I liked talking about them because they're so gigantic and imaginative, and it is going to make these next projects sound far more achievable and realistic. So hopefully you will want to do them. So I have sorted these project ideas into 3 categories. First, the kind that use the fabric from the umbrellas. The second is from using the projects that use the metal or wooden parts of the umbrella. And then finally, I have a category just for trash fashion and costumes from umbrellas. So umbrella fabric is pretty great stuff in that it is generally waterproof, it is lightweight, colorful, strong, and pretty easy to remove from an umbrella. The most common way that people creatively reuse this fabric is to make a lightweight shopping bag. And while you can reuse really any kind of fabric to make a shopping bag, what's so great about the fabric from a recycled umbrella is that the fabric will compress into a very small size and it's very lightweight. So this is a great bag to keep at the bottom of your backpack or your purse for if you have an unexpected moment where you just need another bag. Now, you can find some wonderful umbrella fabric sewing tutorials on the website Cucicucicoo by Lisa Neri. So Lisa has 3 really great tutorials. The first one is for a shopping bag, which includes a free sewing pattern. Then she offered a tutorial for a backpack rain cover, which this is something I first learned about when I was scouting, but actually it's a great idea for anybody who wears a backpack on a regular basis. And then her last tutorial is for a waterproof picnic blanket, which is a great idea because shouldn't all picnic blankets be waterproof? And Lisa also shares some great tips overall about how to remove fabric from umbrellas efficiently. So the next umbrella creative reuse idea involves sewing a raincoat or a poncho from an umbrella. So how would you do this? You would just take a regular pattern for making a raincoat or a poncho, and instead of going to buy new fabric, you would just use the fabric from an umbrella. So I also saw that someone made a poncho for hair cutting from the fabric from an umbrella, which is a great idea because that's when you go to the hairstylist, basically those ponchos are like one big circle, which is exactly what an umbrella fabric is. And so many of us are now doing a lot of hair cutting at home, so it would be a great way to make a homemade poncho. Now, there used to be an Etsy shop that specialized in making dog coats from umbrellas, and I thought that was so cool when I first learned about it, but unfortunately that Etsy shop seems to have shut down. I just want to mention it because I had talked about it in my episode about pets and creative reuse, but certainly if you wanted to make a dog coat from umbrella fabric, you would just get a pattern for a dog coat, which is available online, and then just use the fabric from an umbrella. Another project idea that I wish I had learned about many years ago is to sew a waterproof drawstring bag and then use that as a bicycle seat cover. So I used to bike to work in all weather for many years, and at that time I had bought a cover that would go over my whole bike, and I would put it on my bike on a day whenever it was forecasted to rain. But really, the only part that was essential to waterproof was the seat, because that's where I was going to suck in all the rain and make it an uncomfortable ride home, since the rest of the bike was made of metal. The last idea for creative reuse of umbrella fabric is to sew it together and to make a really big tarp, similar to how Jean Shin did it in her exhibits. And I saw a group, for example, that did this, and they made a big banner from recycled umbrella fabric, which is just a great way of making a banner if you wanted to do it in an inexpensive way. And it was also fine because if it rained, the fabric was fine. The next ideas creatively reuse the metal or wooden parts of the umbrellas. Well, actually, the first idea takes the whole umbrella. So I'm talking about first one of those clear umbrellas. It has clear plastic, and sometimes they're called bubble umbrellas. And I've seen people use them to make a portable greenhouse. So this lets the sunshine come in, but then creates the nice greenhouse effect for the plants. And I even saw a tutorial where they rigged up a basic irrigation system in the umbrella. And for another gardening related idea, I saw a gardener who took the wooden skeleton from a patio umbrella and they put it in their garden to support their cucumbers or their beans, because when you open up the umbrella just a little bit, it's going to stand up and be quite strong. So if you have a defunct umbrella where the handle is a curve, they're more unusual these days, but they are still available, then what you can do if your umbrella breaks is you can just cut off that curvy part, and you can use that to make a hook that you could attach to the wall on a piece of scrap wood, and you could hang your clothes on it. So finally, I will share in the show notes a really fun craft to make pussy willow branches, and they did this by using the spines from the umbrella, and they made the fluffy part of the pussy willow from cotton swabs or Q-tips, and then they wrapped the spine with floral tape. So the last category of projects I'll share today are costumes or trash fashion designs. So as you know, my favorite trash fashion show in the world is Junk Couture. And in 2008, one of the finalists made a design called Cirque de Parapluie, which means the umbrella circus. And this was designed by 3 students from a school in Dublin. Now, all the next ideas are costume ideas that you could make for Halloween. In 2011, when my son was 5 years old, I made him a bat costume from an upcycled umbrella. The wings were the umbrella. So I took out all the metal components because I was worried he would poke himself with those metal spines. And in the show notes, though, I will link to a tutorial by Lenore Edman from the website Evil Mad Scientist Laboratories, and she made a bat costume where she reused an umbrella, and she actually left the metal components in the umbrella, which gave her wings more structure, and she even built bat ears using the umbrella fabric and metal parts. Now, the next umbrella-inspired costume is by Alicia Brown, who is one of the world geniuses for creative reuse of cardboard. On her website, Zygote Brown, she shares how she made a spaceship costume by combining a clear plastic bubble umbrella with cardboard. And the umbrella forms the part of the spaceship where you can sort of see the alien or spaceman sitting in there, and then the cardboard forms the base of the spaceship. The next Halloween costume that creatively reuses an umbrella is pretty surprising. It is someone who dressed up as the Wheel of Fortune wheel from the game show. So the artist who made this costume said that her son was always a huge Wheel of Fortune fan, and he wanted to be the host, Pat Sajak, for Halloween. So she got a white umbrella and she hand-colored each section of the umbrella with Sharpies to make it look like the panels of the Wheel of Fortune wheel. Okay, so I'm just going to finish up by just raising the point that it would be so great if we all purchased fewer umbrellas. And unfortunately, umbrellas are really easy to lose and they also break a lot. So that is why we tend to buy a lot of umbrellas. And I read that there are so many patent applications related to umbrellas that there are people who really specialize in just umbrella-related patents. And yet, so many umbrellas end up in landfill. I did research, if I wanted to buy an umbrella, where could I buy one that's made from recycled materials? And I found a British company called A. Brawley. And their homepage says that they make umbrellas from recycled materials. And I checked, it looks like I can buy one of their umbrellas here in the United States. I mean, generally, I try to avoid buying umbrellas by wearing a raincoat, but I understand that some people prefer to use umbrellas. So thank you for listening. Please let me know if you have ever creatively reused umbrellas, especially to make art or costumes, or gardening, and you can reach me at trashmagination@gmail.com. Until next time, may you see umbrellas as a source of art in your life.